What's up, my fellow space nerds? Your dude Sly here, and welcome to Starfield. E3 2021 was definitely one for the books. It introduced a ton of games and much less BS than ever before. While going to E3 is something I believe every gamer has to do at least once in their lifetime, it was nice to see the focus be purely on games this year. The Xbox and Bethesda joint showcase was also a first this year, and with it came the first bit of Starfield news since its announcement years ago. Up until recently, absolutely nothing was known about the game other than the name, and that it was kind of like a space epic RPG. That's really about it, and maybe some kind of orbiting space station. Even though the recent trailers didn't outright hand over a ton of information, if you broke them down scene by scene, there was a lot to uncover. If you wish to check out everything that I noticed and saw in the background, be sure to watch my trailer breakdown and everything we know about Starfield video here on my channel. Some of it may actually surprise you, and once you put it all together, you really start to see what kind of game Starfield will be. In this video, however, I wanted to skip the news and just go from the gut. What kind of game I want Starfield to be, or at least what elements I would like to see from Starfield. If you browse a few of the forums out there, there are already plenty of posts doing that very thing, and it's currently a little too early for a community wish list, so this time let's talk about what kind of game I would like to see, or what kind of game I would like Starfield to be. Todd Howard has been saying that Starfield is, the game he's always not only wanted to build, but a game that he's always wanted to play. Each of us RPG fans out there, especially sci-fi, fantasy, or space RPG fans, we all have that perfect game pictured in our mind, right? Usually it's a mix of like our top 3 games mashed into one, set in a vast area over a mind-blowing and rich storyline. For myself, it'd be a mix of Mass Effect, Destiny, maybe a splash of Anthem, Elite Dangerous, Fallout, No Man's Sky, a couple of those things all smashed together. As of this moment, we know Starfield will now be a more realistic type of space and action exploration RPG. A space epic is also a term being thrown around a lot. But just because something is an RPG, that doesn't mean we know what kind of game it'll be. There are some RPGs out there that are all about the shooter aspect, others are more story heavy, and some go for a more realistic approach such as space sims. While Todd Howard recently told us that Starfield will be set in a more realistic tone than any other game Bethesda has ever made, the science fiction exploration part is the area we really don't know much about. Flying, factions, ships traveling between star systems or long distance traveling in general, perhaps even ship-to-ship combat, character power, beyond weapons, exploration, possible mining or resource management, map sizes, destinations, you name it. So with that said, let's go ahead and build our own Starfield. Starting with our ships, we recently uncovered that our ships indeed have weapons and shields along with different flight settings to channel power into one area or another. Stronger shields, weaker guns, weak shields, moderately powerful guns, or perhaps just insane boost all around. I think Starfield will feature one of my first requests, and that is space combat or ship-to-ship combat. When a game goes into ship combat, they usually go either too light or just way too heavy. There are some space combat sims out there, still technically an RPG, but that will absolutely make your head spin if you haven't played the 6 months it takes to learn how to fly the damn thing. Exploration by its very nature is dangerous, and since we recently have uncovered a pirate threat in Starfield, we know that it is definitely going to be hostile. I want to see an RPG game that has kind of a Star Wars Squadrons type of ship combat, something that can be fun, but not so technically complicated that it zaps the fun right out of it. It would also be cool if your ship could be disabled and captured, and you'd have to disembark, shoot your way through an enemy ship to release yourself, and then get back into the battle, or perhaps even flee. The next thing I would like to see, and this one here is a big one, and that is building. Now, Starfield is a Bethesda game, so building in one of their RPGs, is pretty much almost implied. With the work they've done with Fallout 4 and 76, they're getting pretty damn good at their building systems. However, in what form will they take within Starfield? I'd like to see a game that takes building to the next level, from upgrading and purchasing new ships, or perhaps even converting old ones or ones that you found floating in space or crashed on a planet. You can take those and add additional habitats inside, work areas, hydroponics, etc. A ship in space is also really your home, your base of operations, so why not upgrade it to its best potential? More so than shipbuilding, Starfield is an exploration game, and exploring planets means exploration outposts. One well-built system can cover all of these elements, and with building, you're going to need resources, right? Well, that leads us to the next item on my wish list, resource management. When you build an outpost or a settlement, or whatever you'd like to call them, I would like to see it pay off by a way of an income. The larger the outpost, the more people you can attract, and the more work gets done. More work means more resources and more money to keep building, upgrading ships, or perhaps even buying new ones. Mining is something else that comes to mind, and it would be cool to link planetary resources and income with building in that manner. If you build perhaps like say in the middle of a desert, you lose money because there's nothing there. But if you find a rich source of iridium, you build an outpost, and of course you can then set people to mine it. Now I'm all for a traditional type of RPG, but games these days, especially in the AAA category, have a ton of competition. They need to be more than just one thing. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a good example of that, and most crucially, they need to last as well. Having these smaller in-game systems means a player can hop on and do nothing but explore for hours on end without even touching the story, or simply have fun building colonies and gathering resources or amassing a fleet that you have to keep fueled. You know, we've seen entire careers online being made by people just building stuff in Fallout. But the last thing I want to do is have the ability to just, plaster the galaxy in my crappy outposts. They need to be purposefully placed, and you need to be able to protect them from hostile native species or, again, the pirate threat. Perhaps you build an outpost on a contested world currently at war. Odds are the payout could be great if you can survive it. Again, a game that is more than just one thing. Next, let's talk about spaceflight and destinations. Now, this is something I've thought about again and again for quite a long time. Mass Effect Andromeda, I thought, did a decent job of showing off space travel while not taking up too much of your time in-game. Now, it wasn't perfect, and in the end it needed to be tweaked, but space travel was actually very boring, a very boring thing to watch in-game. So how do you make a realistic space RPG where you can travel to different systems and planets something fun? I personally can almost see a real-time travel game on the horizon, well, of sorts. So say if you want to travel to a distant planet, you better be damn sure that's what you want to do. Just as it would be in real life, it costs fuel and precious resources to do so, including the most precious resource of all, and that's time. However, would that zap the fun and continuity out of the game? Well, I guess that depends on how long, real-time travel will be. And of course, it's not going to be real-to-life accurate, because by the time we reach, say, Proxima Centauri, our closest neighboring star, we'd all be dead. So there might be an in-game standard of travel. Say, for example, I don't know, 1 AU takes 1 second. So if you want to travel 100 AUs, it takes a little under 2 minutes. Now, I'm only talking hypotheticals here, not really, hoping it is 1 to 100, but just as an example. But again, combine that with your ship, its crafting, upgrading, capabilities, then that gives you something to do while you're traveling. It simulates the far distances and gets the point across without, in my opinion, being too intrusive. If you're going for a realistic space RPG, then that to me makes sense. And if our ship had a ton of stuff to do while on board, then that's something I wouldn't mind seeing in game as long as it doesn't take it too far. You could be building your, master bedroom suite while you travel the 5 minutes it takes to go somewhere. Now, once we arrive in a system, though, I would want all the planets, space stations, and destinations within that star system to be fairly accessible time-wise. Traveling between systems, like one star to another, sure, I wouldn't mind the actual, real-time travel of sorts experience. But once inside that system, I'd like things to be accessible through flying my ship to destinations and doing so fairly quickly. Another thing that I've been thinking about, the destinations themselves. On the one hand, having an entire planet to explore would be cool, right? But completely unnecessary and a total waste of development time. On the other hand, I don't want each planet or destination to be a small area with invisible out-of-bounds walls keeping me within a certain small space. So what is the best mix? How do we make cities, colonies, or destinations seem large enough for exploration, but small enough that developers can take the time they need to build it right? This is a tough question, and once again, I thought Mass Effect Andromeda did a halfway decent job at this. However, they definitely could have improved on some destinations. On some of the larger, central to the storyline habitable planets, I'd like to see something, massive, like a Final Fantasy XIV approach, where you have a colony thriving with businesses and people, guilds, faction headquarters, markets, etc. You exit the gates and have wide open spaces and varying terrain before you eventually arrive at another outpost or city on the opposite side of the world. You can't have an entire planet be accessible, but you can make it seem that way. You just have to adjust the scale of things. You can have the entire map be a continent with the ocean as out of bounds. On the large planets, I definitely would like to see a true open world map with various cities or outposts dotting the landscape, kind of like something out of The Witcher 3, or again, massive like Final Fantasy. However, on smaller, harsher worlds that are kind of just like a side item on the way to some other place, I would be perfectly fine with like a Mass Effect Andromeda approach where you are given a decent amount of space, but eventually you do hit boundaries. The thing to note is that even spaces like those within the Outer Worlds can be made into something awesome if they are done properly. Making boundaries or large canyons or treacherous storms, even atmospheric conditions or perhaps mountain ranges like in Horizon Zero Dawn. Have boundaries be a part of the landscape and blend in, making them seem perfectly normal where indeed they actually serve a purpose. I'm excited to see how Todd Howard and Bethesda handles this problem. It is a massive undertaking in of itself to make all these different areas and planets, but they've done something similar with Skyrim. That's a huge open world with lots of different terrain. Now all they have to do is do it on a variety of planets. Next up, the RPG aspect. Now we know Todd Howard wants this game to not only be believable, but also one of the more hardcore RPGs Bethesda has created. You're going to be able to choose a backstory, but what I really want to see in this game is reflecting those backstories. Mass Effect was one of the first games to implement something like this, and even though it wasn't earth-shattering, it was pretty awesome to see your choices reflect in conversations or options from not only game to game, but conversation to conversation. I want Starfield to take this to the next level. My demeanor, my background, my choices, perhaps even where in Earth I was raised or born could all make a difference. I'd like to see these different stories lead to unique instances across the game. Like I said, certain conversations, certain faction opportunities, maybe even unique missions as well that you only get to see if you have a certain backstory. Another wishlist item, something that's kind of in the same category, a morality system. I really want to see some kind of morality system in play within Starfield. Remember the example of getting captured during ship-to-ship combat? What if you were fighting for a faction, say in a special side mission because of your backstory, a faction war? You're fighting and on the verge of being destroyed. In these side missions, it's a high-risk, high-reward scenario. You die, it's over, you lose your ship and a ton of resources, money, etc. You win the battle, you get tons of loot. However, what if you flee to save your own ass, money, and loot, but that means you condemn the rest of your faction to die? You might get booted from the faction and take a hit to your morality, but you save your 100-hour work-in-progress ship and half of your money. I would like to see options like this, and in return, have different opportunities pop up in-game, depending on your moral stance. Lots of games have traversed this morality path, but none have ever really taken it to the degree where I think it could go. Alright, so the next item on the wish list, upgrade paths. And of course, something like the special system, a background system, will need to be included within Starfield. However, Bethesda knows best in this area. My strong suit was never being able to upgrade my character in any real meaningful manner. I just threw a bunch of points into areas I thought would work best, mostly strength. So as far as upgrades go, talents, etc., Todd, you do your thing. However, seeing something like a special system mixed in with your special background choice, I think that would be neat to be able to explore. Next up, let's talk about weapons and tech. One thing that really intrigues me about Starfield is, again, the in this moment believability approach that they're shooting for. Mass Effect, to me, was believable in the moment because all of its in-game technology was thought out and even explained via in-game lore tabs. Even though it was complete fiction, how the technology worked and how it was used in various parts of the game made it believable in the moment. The Mass Effect is technology using a rare element called Element Zero. By putting it on a negative charge, it would shrink the mass of anything intertwined with it. By putting it on a positive charge to an Element Zero alloy, you could gain mass. So for spaceflight, mass is the biggest problem when going for light speed. Once you reach a certain point, the faster you go, the more mass you gain. So via traditional rockets, you can never reach the speed of light. It's just not possible. The reason light or photons can travel the speed of light is because they have no mass. Thus, the mass effect. When you put Element Zero on a ship and negatively charge it, you can basically reduce the entire mass of the ship, add an exotic propulsion, and this is how spaceflight technology works in Mass Effect. If such an element existed, then it absolutely sounds believable. When you're playing a game and that much thought goes into a technology, it increases its believability. And Mass Effect, like Star Wars, has a whole universe of well thought out fictional technology that makes sense within the now and then moments. It seems to me that Starfield is going for a piece of technology called an Alcubierre drive, basically a warp drive. So antimatter or anti-mass technology in some degree exists within Starfield, at least in some point in time within the game. And that means you can do a bunch of cool things with technology like that. In Mass Effect, the Mass Effect technology is built into guns as well, so taking away the mass of bullets to project them at insane speeds right before they, leave the barrel, it then increases the mass to incredible proportions. So a super small bullet will hit like a boulder. I'd love to see things like mixed up like that. We know there will be futuristic firearms based on reality within the game, but I would like to see the game stay away from approaching magic and rely more on technology. Technology that might be currently unbelievable, but approaches sound theories and rooted in physics, at least in some way. Todd Howard has already admitted to having lasers within a vacuum, so even though the game is shooting for a more realistic approach, it is a game after all. Next up, the next part of the wish list, alien life. Any good space epic lets you pork an alien, period. But no, that's not what I want from Starfield, though. Alien sex just doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't work with jellyfish, crabs, whales, or salamanders. It's not going to work with aliens. However, I would like to see a fresh take on human-sapient-alien relations. Most of the time, they portray aliens are either this super pure and forgiving lovey-dovey society, or they take the worst parts of human history and portray it as normal for a certain alien species. Neither of these are wrong, but I doubt it's right either. I'd like to see something new, awkward, and even though they exist, I don't want them front and center. Alien life has this uniqueness to them, a mysteriousness about it, and that's ruined once you start porking them and becoming friends with it. So I'd like to see Starfield approach alien life as almost taboo, or at the very least, in a new way. And I mean that about, of course, sapient alien life, not like alien deer or worms or things like that. Okay, so as we start winding down this wishlist video, only a few more things left to talk about. And the first one of those is factions. I thought Destiny missed a huge opportunity with their different and at times warring factions. I would like to see various factions of the game as almost a game within a game, right? Our Space Explorer is with Constellation, a space exploration company. One of the last, but it's been confirmed that we will be able to join factions at some point in time within the game. I would like to see these factions have realistic traits like recruitment ads and colonies, a headquarters, fleets, and perhaps even a flagship. Once you join a faction, you can pick up bounties to turn in criminals for rewards, or you can land in at one of the offices or HQ out in the colonies, or if you see the fleet, you can dock with the flagship and stay the night, help out by repairing or building on their ships, similar to building on your own ship or outposts, complete bounties, stock up on goods within the market, maybe even undertake special missions on these massive ships, missions that are only available to certain backstories or moralities. It would be great that if it went a step further and you could rise through the ranks of the factions, leading them into wars over territory or against other factions. Some will be fought via ships like the ones we've been upgrading, or they could be fought on moons or planets. You can call in orbital strikes and other outposts and expand your territory of your preferred faction. Again, like I said in the beginning, a game that is more than just one thing. If this is a game that Todd Howard has always wanted to play, his perfect game so to say, what would yours look like? What would you have in it? Alright, ladies and gents, and finally, what I really want to see, and of course it's a bit cliche, but an original and mind-blowing story. The older I get, the more single-player, story-driven games I play. I love sci-fi, space games, movies, books, you name it. I would like the game to have this epic story that follows you no matter what you do. And if you're sidetracked by helping out your faction, or if you're mining to help stockpile your resources to build more outposts, or if you're going out, bounty hunting to get better loot, a badass story is something I always look for. And this game has the opportunity to bring out one of the best yet. Okay, and last but not least, I want the game to reward exploration like no other. Exploring is cool, right? But for me, I need a purpose to explore. Exploration just for the sake of looking at new types of trees is cool, but boring. There has to be a goal, a reason, or at the very least, a reward for doing so. I think it would be absolutely epic if Starfield could deliver exploration and discovery even after the game ends. I'd like to see an end game that's just one giant puzzle. If the game is as large as some are saying it will be, I think it'll be cool to have a community type of puzzle. For it to even begin, it has to first be discovered. And how do you discover it? By exploring and looking for it. Once discovered and solved, it then has to be somehow pieced together by the community. And once again, you do this by exploring and scouring space. You could slowly assemble a machine or some kind of alien artifact that completely changes the reality of the game, a new truth, or possibly something that even leads into Starfield 2. Exploring and mining, or exploring to loot items for better guns, it's done before. And while finding an exotic weapon in the middle of nowhere would be cool and rewarding, like I said, it's been done before. I'd like Starfield to go deeper than just loot, to perhaps close out the storyline by piecing these hundreds of missing items onto an alien artifact and, finishing the story. Of course, that means the game would have to be connected somehow, and even though I know that's not what the game has in mind, I would like to see something like it, something new that truly gives you a reason to explore. And once you find something, you get a real sense of like, holy shit, I just found it. I've been looking for it forever. I can't believe I just found it. That just happened. That's the kind of game I want Starfield to be. An action-adventure, space epic RPG set in a believable futuristic setting with some real-time strategy, resource management, spaceflight, and building elements that all leads into just one epic storyline. Now, of course, that is an extremely tall order, but if this is a game that Todd Howard has always wanted to play and always wanted to build, then you know it's going to be a tall order no matter what. Who's to say what a well-coordinated team could do with 10 years of development time? Unfortunately, quite a few of the games I've been covering or have been most hyped about over the past few years have all failed. Wasted development time, poor leadership, out-of-touch management calling for complete do-overs, inter-office struggles, or putting too much attention in one area and then skimping on the rest of the game. For once, I want a game that's past the hype and just effing mind-blowing. Again, that is a lot to ask, but this is a video about what I would like to see within Starfield, and this is it, giving the constraints of the type of game I think it'll be. I already see articles popping up online talking about Starfield hype, how it's blowing out of proportion and the hype will be its downfall. Bro, we've seen 3 videos in just as many years. I mean, come on. The only hype created here comes from the fans, and I think that is something to be celebrated. Cyberpunk, on the other hand, now that was a hype machine like no other game in history. There is still a lot we do not know about Starfield, and of course this is simply a video about speculation, but keep it here at Sly Nation as I plan on covering this game all throughout its development and well into launch. Again, to include all of this into one game, especially into the supposed size of Starfield, it's a tall order, but these are some things that I would like to see included and done well. It doesn't have to be all of them, but hopefully at least a few. Lots of games out there have bordered on greatness if they could have only just given it a little more time and expanded on things just a hair more. However, it's a cutthroat business and people in suits usually have the say, not the gamers or developers. As always, thank you all so much for watching and for supporting my channel, Sly Nation. Let me know what you would like to see within Starfield. I may not reply a lot to comments, but I read the comments on my phone all the time when I have downtime. So let the words flow, y'all. What do you want to see? More of a sci-fi game? More realistic? Full of aliens? Or let aliens be a mystery? Do you want planetary, worldwide systems, ship-to-ship combat? Let me know down below. Also, be sure to spank the thumbs up or down if you liked, loved, or hated this video. And if you wish to get in touch, business or otherwise, feel free to hit me up, y'all. SlyNationGaming67@gmail.com, or check me out over on the socials at Sly_Nation on Twitter, Sly Nation Gaming on Facebook. Take care, my fellow Constellation Explorers, and keep it here as we have plenty of Starfield left to discover. But until then, this is your dude Sly, and I'll see you all next time.